A few years ago, a friend of mine and I were driving north up along the old logging trails to, I don't know, it was a volunteer engineering group that he had founded, and we were going north to help some people who had been there. It was just a little camp style village kind of a thing, maybe 20 people, 30 people, not too many, maybe 4 families, 5 families, something like that, a few visitors. But they'd gotten wiped out in a fire. So after the fire crews had come in and put out the fire and all that, they were looking for help rebuilding, and somehow they found our name. So we were driving up, and most of the way there, getting far enough north that it's starting to get cold, the roads are starting to turn to ice. And one of those great big 2-trailer logging trucks starts passing us on the road. And we see it coming, and we're in our lane and he's in his, and all seems to be fine. Happened in like 2 seconds. I couldn't tell you how it did, but the truck skidded, must have slipped on ice or something, and I don't know if the load wasn't tied down or if it was just a windy day with the storm going or what it was, but the truck started to tip and lost part of the load. And one of those great big logs about 3 feet in diameter came flying off that road along with the rest of them, smashed right through the car windshield. Last thing I remember seeing was the truck starting to slide across into the other lane. Woke up a few days later in a hospital bed, and no idea where I was, what had happened, anything like that. But apparently what had happened was when the airbags went off as the log hit us, it had pushed my arm up and backwards. Don't ask me how. But I don't know. I ended up with a couple of pretty good cuts, scrapes, broken ribs, that kind of thing. Log went right underneath my arm, hit my rib cage, and busted it up pretty bad. But friend wasn't so lucky. Log hit him straight center mass and cut him in half. There's nothing left and nothing they could do. But I don't know. Still remember that. Still. Some things don't really go away. They get easier as time goes on, but every once in a while you think back, especially on a day like today. It's a beautiful day, the sun's out, and snow's starting to melt. And I can remember back when we were kids and stuff like that, and we had this great big funny thing. I'd never seen it anywhere else. It was a Christmas tree farm, and it was 40 acres, 50 acres, something like that, and it was owned by friends of our family. But they were starting to get old, and they kind of let it get overgrown. So, there were some little trees, but for the most part, trees were all 80 feet tall. They were getting big. Great place to play as kids, because, I don't know, we had, like I said, 40 acres all to ourselves, and nobody else out there. We were far enough away from town and from the neighbors that we had our own little world to explore and everything like that. I remember dressing up as soldiers, finding dad's old combat fatigues or police fatigues, what have you, up in the trunk in the attic, and asking if we could play with them. We said, sure, go ahead. So we took them, and we'd be soldiers, or we'd be superheroes, or we'd be explorers, or play cowboys and Indians, whatever. We had hand-drawn maps of that whole field, and as we got older, we started getting really good at making them too. By this time we're maybe 9 years old, 10 years old, so big enough that we're allowed to carry our 22s and that kind of thing out in the field with us and do a little hunting while we're out there and a little exploring. I don't know. That's really how I remember him. But he was going places. He was the one of us that was gonna go places. He had that volunteer organization that he started up and was running for. It was a non-profit thing, a group of volunteer engineers and construction workers and fabricators and all kinds of design people that you could think of. And what they did was they rebuilt communities that had been destroyed in any circumstance, whether that be result of some kind of violence of some sort, or whether that be a storm or a flood or anything like that. So yeah. Wish I could have seen where he'd gone. That's the part that hurts, is you don't get to know what happened. Been about 10, 15 years since we'd last played in that field and last explored there as kids. And after the crash, and he died, he didn't have a will, didn't have any kind of written record of what he wanted done with his possessions, but neither of us had much. We had some tools and some essentials, clothes and that kind of a thing, but nothing really incredible. I don't know, he left his, he had an old pickup truck that he worked on, and that thing ran great. It was 30 years old, but you had no idea. He left that to his little brother, which I thought was pretty cool. And we took him back to that field to bury him. It seemed like the fitting thing to do. I was where he was always happiest when he was a kid. So it seemed like a good way to do it. Only about half of that field is still standing today. The owners passed away eventually, and part of that field got plowed over and turned into a parking lot after their land got sold. But part where my friend is it's still there, up in the tallest section of the trees, right where the little river where we used to fish and hunt runs down through the hills and down onto the field. So I think he would have liked that.